Hello, everyone. Welcome to our weekly American Mussar community gathering. This is our 8th Mussar cycle, and this time we are focusing on the soul trait of chesed, which translates to loving kindness, but more accurately or more completely, it really means going above and beyond to support someone else without asking for anything in return. So this week, we're going to start looking at the soul trait of humility. And as we explore humility, we're going to think about how can this support us as we show up in the world from a place of kindness. Even when the cat scratches your leg, when you're talking on Zoom, we want to be nice and sweet and kind to them. So we're going to start the way that we always do with a short meditation. So please relax in your seat and close your eyes and take in a deep breath through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold, and inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. As you go at your own pace of inhaling through the nose and holding, and exhaling through the mouth and holding. If thoughts should come into your mind, just observe them and let them pass, like watching a car move past on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema. Listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Okay, what is going on here? I'm afraid that the cat has done something to the screen. Thank you for your patience. Okay. So, are we still here? Yes. Okay, let's try again. Okay, so to get started, we're going to start with the mantra for humility, which was written by Alan Moranis, no more than my space, not less than my place. It's a concept that we've discussed a number of times, but maybe I'd love to kind of hear what it brings up with you today. And if you have any initial thoughts about how this might relate to our Chesed journey. Yeah, Sue.
Well, I have what I think is sort of a funny comment, but it kind of relates to Hesed. So I say this no more than my space, no less than my place. I write it down every morning. And I started writing a new one that said, be humble and lovable. And I was thinking that's like, I don't know, to me, that's Hesed. I mean, lovable means you give of yourself and people love you back, kind of.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, I'd love to kind of hear about that as, the weeks progress and you're doing that mantra and how it sort of shows up for you. That's cool. Also, I want to say hi to Gil and Marianne. I see you have arrived. Thanks for joining us. Joanne, did I see your hand earlier?
Yes, you did. And then I was like, I don't know exactly, but I think you have to, no more than my space, no less than my place.
Yeah.
I think you also have to have enough,
Mm,
like self-love or
mm,
confidence. I'm not sure which to be no less than my place.
mm,
So like, and not put yourself down, I guess is what I'm thinking.
mm.
You can still be humble, and that helps with chesed, I think, with loving and be caring for others and yourself.
Yeah,
But
no, I agree. Can you say more about how that helps when we're loving ourselves or we're caring for ourselves? It helps us kind of be there for others.
yeah, I think if you don't love yourself, then you can't really be there for others.
Mm,
I don't know exactly how that works, but it seems to be correct, you know, because you can't even think about others if you're all absorbed in yourself, I guess is what
yeah, no,
I
I think
think.
that's spot on. Thank you. Wendy.
When I was reading Greg's book on the humility, it came up like know your place. And then when I went back to this mantra, and it says, um, know more than your place, whatever. You have to know it. And
Mm,
I think it changes
mm,
because my place has changed. And now I'm just like sitting back trying to figure out when I'm supposed to come forward with stuff. It used to be easy
mm,
because I just really didn't know much.
mm,
But then when I got experience in some areas, I'm just only talking in a couple areas, it's very hard to come forward with, what you're going to say might help, but is it your place to act accordingly? But your book says know your place, act accordingly. That's a
mm.
really good mantra for me right now.
Know your place, act accordingly. Yeah, we kind of have no N-O and no K-N-O-W as well. It's sort of they're both, if you don't do the second one, if you don't know your place, if you don't know yourself, then how do you know what's too much or too little? Thank you. Paul.
Yeah, I think that one thing that I put this mantra in the context of is that it's always in the context of my surroundings, whatever my environment is. So if it's no more than my space, it's not just me, myself, and I, not more than my space, but in terms of my relationship with others. So I think that's and that's, for me, that definitely changes on who I'm with and what the relationship is like in the first place, and what I'm doing with that relationship with somebody else as well. So sometimes it means taking up more, but more and more, historically, I tended to, I was taught that it was really important to speak up and let people know what you knew, because that was, in academia for sure, that was a way to make sure that your voice was heard.
Yeah.
But that doesn't always leave much room for others. And
Yeah.
so for me, the listening part and I don't know, just having a more, and this, maybe this is where loving kindness comes in, having a more inviting space.
Mm,
It's not just my space, but it's my space. I want to be invited. I want to be able to invite others into that. But it has to be an inviting space.
mm.
So,
I love that. Yeah, I'm sort of thinking about sometimes I sort of approach this through like boundary setting and things like that. And I've been told I'm very good at setting boundaries. You know, this is my space. And after 9 o'clock, I'm not answering your text messages or whatever. But, you know, that's not necessarily an inviting approach. You know, so that's how do you marry that to kind of make it sort of inviting and connecting while having healthy boundaries? That's it's kind of what's I'm liking where we're going with this. It feels a little bit more I wouldn't say we're at graduate level Mussar here, but we're getting definitely a little deeper this round. Wendy.
Thank you, Paul. That was perfect for me. Because invite others into my space and maybe also wait to be invited into theirs.
Hmm.
So that then I will know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I'm supposed to speak up and share whatever knowledge it is I have. That's so good that I was on the other side of academia so long that I just could sit back and listen to everybody else's wisdom and knowledge and just write it down, memorize it, and pass a test. Now, not so much. I have to talk, and not easy. But now, thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. Okay, so let's go to another level here. So let's talk about the spectrum of humility. Can somebody unmute and kind of read or share with us the different poles of the spectrum?
I guess one pole is to be arrogant with too little humility, and the other is too much humility. So self-debasing or just saying, oh, it's nothing. You know, I'm not whatever. And so, do you want me to read below that too, or?
Did you have more you wanted to say? I would like you to read that, but let's just pause here and see if anyone has any comments on the spectrum itself before we hear from Rabbi Barenblatt. Okay, Gil, why don't you go for it and read what's
So holding oneself back in order to please others or in order to not risk offending others, which are variations on the same theme, is not humility. It's taking up less than my space, and that's not a character strength, it's a character flaw.
great. Thank you. I'm gonna stop the share and then I'm gonna put that into the chat. Okay, so what is Sue, I see your hand there. Was that right? Or were you just
Yeah, well, there was something that was bothering me about that it said, not risking offending others. I mean, I feel like we should not offend other people. And so if you're going to offend somebody, I mean, it depends. I suppose it depends on why. But, I mean, it says that that's what I'm reading in this. Maybe I didn't understand it, but it says it's a character flaw if you hold yourself one back and in order to please others or not risk offending others. I don't see that as a character flaw, but I don't know. Maybe I'm too much that way. Like, I mean, I want to please others and I don't want to offend anybody. And I don't think that's a flaw, especially when we're talking about Hesed, right? I mean, doing good things for people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, let's talk about it. Let's see what other people think. Do we agree? So we have one from Sue. I kind of disagree with this, if I'm hearing you correctly. It's like, I really don't want to offend other people. I don't want to, you know, I'd like others to be pleased. So let's hear some other perspectives. People agree with Sue. Do we agree with Rabbi Barenblatt? Do we have maybe an interpretation of Rabbi Barenblatt? Yes, Carrie.
We just saw a documentary last night on a judge in Canada, and her name is Rosie, and I can't remember her last name, Bella or something like that. And she talked about how judges have to not listen to public opinion, but with humanity interpret the laws. And she was willing to risk people being mad at her, angry at her, disagreeing with her, because she felt that the law had to be applied in a humanitarian way, that it wasn't just written in stone. And I think that for me, that relates to humility. She felt her place was to make the law good for everyone, not just a certain group of people or the like. And she did that throughout her whole career. And she didn't take up more space, but she was firm in her beliefs and that she was doing the right thing. And she ended up being on the Supreme Court of Canada. So it's just fascinating how she interpreted the law in a humanitarian, in a chesed way, and doing good for everyone. It was just brilliant. So that's what came to my mind.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing you, thank you, Carrie, that's an interesting example. So maybe we're faced with a situation where we would, in order to interpret the law or do what we think is right, it might be unpopular with people. And they might be displeased with us, or they might, and so do we hold back and we're not going to do the unpopular thing, or do we do the unpopular thing? So maybe that's a way where this could come into play. Martin.
Let's see. Let's see if am I? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I guess an example of people making unpopular decisions without thinking about offending would be some of the members of the Supreme Court. So there you are.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. They're very much in line with we would like to give everyone on the Supreme Court the benefit of the doubt that they're interpreting the law as they see it according to their principles, and they're not worried about what's going to be popular or not popular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Gil, did I see your hand? Or were you just, no? Okay. Wendy.
Well, I was thinking of deconstructing this whole thing and looking at it in kind of not a bad negative way, but in a little bit more of a negative way, because I was thinking shirking your responsibility by, based on false humility. It's like the opposite of Hesed. And I have an example, if you guys want me to give it to you, in that I knew something that I needed to present to the board of directors in our temple. It wasn't going to make them happy, but I knew that it was going to make our temple more safe, thereby making lots of people's lives safer. And so I had to do it.
Yeah.
It wasn't well received, and it's still kind of a problem for me, but I was happy that I did it because I knew I was supposed to.
Yeah,
And I was, of course, was expecting nothing from it because
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't going to be well received. But I was thinking it would have been so much easier for me to hide behind, oh, who am I? Oh, I'm just a little congregant. No, I had to. And it actually has benefited the temple in that many people who did not want to accept the things that were going on with October the 7th as being something that might affect our temple have now come to the realization that, oh yeah, perhaps it might. And so they have been starting to do safety enhancements and look at our temple in a different way. Nobody likes it, but it's sometimes you're put in a position, I guess.
Thank you, Wendy. So, another a really good personal, thank you for sharing your personal experience of needing to kind of step out of your comfort zone and say something that's impossible and unpopular, because that seemed like the right thing to do. Marianne. If you could remember to unmute.
Okay, sorry. Mine is similar to Wendy's. Somebody I know recently reported to me that a parent was hitting, I guess, his child as if the child was an adult or punching them. I don't know. And I said, you need to report that. And he said, I'm not going to, I'm not going to do that because I can't tell somebody how to discipline their child. So I'm going to offend him by either insisting that he reports that or going over him in my job because yeah, so that's kind of a moral thing in the way that Wendy's talking about. It's more of a moral thing. Also, I think that you can hold yourself back and let people almost take advantage of you and not stand your ground, hold your boundaries because you don't want to get them upset with you. And I don't think that's healthy. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you for sharing that example. And I hope that all works out okay. But that reminds me of something that I was thinking about sharing. And when I was in the corporate world and when I was a workaholic, I think one of the traps and one of the bad habits that I fell into was what could be labeled as people pleasing, where it's like people would ask me to do something and it was always yes, because I didn't want anyone to be unhappy with me. And not all of this was conscious, but I think it was unconscious. So, why did I have so much to do? Because I never said no to anybody. And so that's where I think it was a bit of a character, I would say in my case, it felt like a character flaw, maybe with a small f, like no one was, but it didn't do the organization any good. It didn't do me any good to take on more work. And frankly, I wasn't doing someone else a favor doing their work for them when it was really their job to do this and to pass it off on me. So it's an important balance, and it's an important part of the picture, I think. Okay, so yes, Sue.
Just quickly, I wanted to say thank you to everyone because I started on the other side and now I'm understanding why it is. And that was a great example, Greg, of that. So thank you.
Sure. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go in another level deeper. I was debating whether we would go to the breakout rooms. Yeah, let's go to the breakout rooms. I've changed my mind. I think we did well going early last time. This is something we started to talk about in the bigger group, but I just want to give people the chance to kind of share some of their own experiences of taking up space, not taking up space. So how does this relate to doing acts of chesed, to maybe go a little deeper on that. And do you personally, if you're trying to do something for someone else without asking anything in return, is it for you about taking up more or less space? Now we need to remember that sometimes we can go too far to the extreme of doing too much chesed and not setting enough boundaries. So that's kind of what I'd like y'all to work on. So let me open up the breakout rooms. Okay. The rooms are open.
Mhm.
Hey everyone, welcome back.
Hey,
So I would love to hear, how were those discussions and what were some of the things that you realized about yourself or insights you had? Who would like to begin? Yeah, Wendy.
Well, we approach the subject matter a little differently. We ask ourselves, what do you do when you're up against someone who has no humility? And
Mm.
then
That's right.
Martin coined a little word called ionism. That's the only reason I'm talking. And I thought it was very clever. Somebody ion instead of all the isms out there. And that was kind of clever, but that was all.
Ionism, that's someone who's like into I or themselves a lot. Is that the idea, Martin?
mhm.
4:40 p.m.
Yeah, that's a fascinating question. It's like, okay, I'm supposed to do something for someone else without asking for anything in return. What if this person just is really totally self-centered and they never do anything for anyone else and they just expect you to do this stuff? Is there some point where, enough's enough? So how does humility help us deal with a person like that? Martin?
Walk away.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, I guess my comment is, I guess know when it's time to leave that conversation.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
this is how I've been in that situation, and this is how I leave that conversation. I'll speak when there's a moment where there's a second of silence. I'll just say, I need to excuse myself from this conversation. And I don't say something about the other person. I'll just say, I need to leave. I need to excuse myself from this conversation. So that becomes a very polite way to do it. So,
Yeah, great. Thank you. Joanne?
Yeah, so we were talking also about some people you feel like you have to walk on eggshells with them or they get offended.
Hmm.
You don't want to do that, but some people, that's just the way they are, and that's very difficult. And in those situations, maybe you take up less than your space.
Yeah.
Used to give me a big headache to have to do that with my sister, and um, I became more assertive of my space when we did it. One of the times when we did this soul trade, I was saying that, I have 6 closets in my apartment. I let my son have 2 of them. He hasn't lived with me for years.
Hmm.
And those closets aren't even full. So I just let him know, by the way, I need this space. So I'm taking it. And I hope I can get my apartment in shape. I'm also trying to get rid of stuff that I don't need anymore. But it's such a battle because I tend to get cluttery.
Yeah, so thank you, Joanne. There's a couple of different different soul traits that are interacting with one another about trying to create more order in the apartment, and then suddenly saying, hey, here's space which I've given up, which is part of my apartment, which I kind of need, and it isn't being used. So maybe I'm trying to be kind and generous to my son, but realizing, well, maybe that's a little bit too much. And so I need to exert some humility and take up a little bit more space, to not overdo it in these areas, to speak up for my needs in this case. Love it. Thank you. Did I interpret that correctly?
Excuse me a second.
So, thank you. Karen. Hey, nice to see
Okay.
you.
This might be
Good.
just different words, but when you asked about the connection between chesed and humility, my thinking is that it is an act of chesed to recognize our own place and space among other people in relationships. And it is also an act of chesed to allow them their space and a place to participate in the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's again part of that knowing that we were talking about earlier, that I think Wendy had brought up. It's like knowing your place, knowing what's for there, and then as an act of chesed, allowing them to have it without hassle. And that's great. I want to come back to this question though that I asked earlier, that was kind of sparked by this conversation that Wendy and Martin had. We have someone who is always, and maybe we'll talk about someone who's not a relative. Maybe this is a professional relationship where there's just someone who's always looking for favors, but is never giving any favors. And maybe they even kind of get a little bit guilt trippy if you're not doing stuff to help them. And so it could be an act of chesed to help this person, but maybe we're helping too much. Maybe we're supporting them too much. So how does humility help us get out of that situation or address that situation? Yeah, Martin.
Yeah. I'm audible?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I guess one is recognize the personality type as best you can, as soon as you can. If there's a lot of narcissism going around, well, you can stay in the audience or decide to leave.
Yeah.
I guess just using judgment. Is this person, how emotionally intelligent is the speaker? And just, use your judgment. If you want to be in that situation and that knocks your socks off, well, then all power to you.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you, Martin. So one way is to kind of bring our judgment to bear. What are other ways? What are some ways, some other thoughts? Yeah, I love that first one. I saw Carrie and then Sue.
Well, I was in a situation like that and I ended up quitting. There was no way, a conversation did not work with this person. And I could take it for about a year and then it wasn't worth it.
And do you see a connection to, and that totally makes sense, do you see a connection to humility in that decision to quit? And maybe there is, maybe there isn't.
Well, I needed to protect myself.
Yeah.
And it was an abusive situation. So I had I had catered to this person for several months. I did what he wanted. I thought it was really stupid and obnoxious and condescending. But at a point, I was enabling. It wasn't acts of test. It wasn't a good thing anymore for anybody. I don't know if this really fits in with humility. I have to think about that.
Okay. I have some thoughts, but I want to hear from some other people first.
No less.
Sue and then Wendy.
So the question, as I recall it on the table, was when we were helping too much and too much involved. At least that's how I heard it. So I was thinking about that, and I had an example that we actually talked about in our small group. That and Gil helped me to understand how what I did was I asked for help instead of jumping in. At the time, I felt really bad about it because I should have taken this person home. But my response was not should have, but I maybe could have, but I felt spent and tired. So this was a temple, and they asked me, and I said, well, there's a lot of other people here who live in your area. I live all the way out, and I asked for help. So, I mean, that's one way I think, if you feel like you're helping somebody, you're enabling somebody too much, you can get other people involved. And I think that's a way of taking up less space in a more of a humble way, a hesed way. I don't know.
Yeah, so the person was still taken care of, but you didn't have to do it yourself. It's like someone who's asking me to do stuff at work. The stuff needed to get done. Was I the person that needed to do it? Not always, sometimes not ever. Yeah, I'm sorry you're having a crisis around that. I have my own crisis going on. I have you have your job to do, and I'm sorry I could help you do it for sure, but I have my own job to do right now. I'm tired. I need to take care of myself right now. I know you need to get home. You're not on your own, but let's talk to Bill, who lives next door to you. Maybe he could give you a ride home. So, Wendy.
Well, I could think of lots of answers to that question. The first one that came to mind was that I could say to a person, I have this book I want you to read. I'd love you to read this book. It's so good. And would you like to have an audio version, or would you like to have a
Well, that would
no,
totally
I,
solve
I
all
have
the
often
problems in the
thought,
world if everybody listens to that book.
well, I have often thought that I'm not approaching these people who actually know anything about these traits or know anything about Mussar, and they have good hearts, and I know they'd love it. So something that I kind of have in the back of my mind. And yeah, I had a person ask me, I pointed out an error. Really, I'm just the messenger right now. And that person said, who do you think you are? And then this kind of went on, this kind of thing. And I was also bullied and badgered and harassed. And I thought, no, I'm not going to buy into any of that. I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait until I figure out a way that I can go. There are two people actually, and tell them that they've done something wonderful. If they do anything that's loving kindness at all, I'm going to be right on that. So, and this is so silly. We lost our maintenance crew at Temple, and it was sad. They died. Someone died, but we got these cleaners. And since I've been going to Temple, I've kind of had the back of my mind, it's so dirty here. It's so dirty. I even asked the rabbi once, do we have a maintenance crew? And she said, oh yeah. And I said, okay. Some people just don't see the dirt that I see, I guess. I don't know. But when I walked in that day, it was beautiful. And so I went right up to the person who was responsible for getting the new maid service. And she was like backing away from me when I came up to her, because I know they must think I'm really mad at them. And I'm not. And I said, oh, have you been in the bathroom? Not something someone says. And she says, yeah, isn't it great? I said, yes, it's great. Thank you for getting this, the maids to do it. So I think it's just really hard, and it takes patience. That's another trait. You have to wait for a long time sometimes before you're going to be able to compliment that person, but it changes the relationship. Like what Paul was saying, you have to judge the relationship, and that's so important, because I knew they're expecting me to hate them. I don't. I really shouldn't have even been on the board to begin with, but because I'm not a board person, but I needed to do that for writing the grants for a little while. So it's been a very interesting Mussar experience.
Yeah, great example of patience. Was there someone else whose hand I saw, or anyone else who would like to chime in? So the one thing that I heard, and my sort of insight and takeaway from all of your thinking and discussions, is a way that humility can support loving kindness. If there's someone who's like taking and not giving in return, or just doing too much, or even if they're being toxic or what have you, it's about knowing and maintaining my space. And for my own health, I need to go home. I need to quit this job. I need to set a boundary. And I think it's being centered in who you are and knowing who you are, and not letting someone else define you about, oh, if you were a good team player, you'd be doing this. You know what? No, I am a good team player, and I'm not the only one on the team. So that's kind of like, you know, no more than my space. No, that's your space. You want me to do, or you're encroaching in my space with your toxicity. And I love Wendy's example of patience, where it's like, I'm going to wait them out. I'm going to, it's reminds me of some parenting advice. Wait for your kids to do something good. You can't always be, you got to sometimes be watching them like a hawk and wait for the one. Like there was a time where I was a green room parent, if any of you have theater kids or in theater, like where the actors wait when they're not on stage is called the green room. And there was one person who was always causing trouble, and I was just waiting and waiting and waiting. And one night she was really good, and she like read, and she didn't get in arguments with people. And so I named her as like the best kid of the night. We always gave a little award, and I said, and we're giving it to so and so. And her mother was like, really? And I was like, yeah, she really did a great job tonight. So so yeah, that's an important, powerful piece. Well, we are coming to the end of our time, so I'm very happy we can go more than 2 weeks, because there was a really nice chunk, which I will save for next week. However, let's spend a little time thinking about what actions we're going to take. So here we go. This is kind of the ones from the back of the book. I haven't tried to kind of come up with new things, but let's start with someone unmuting and reading this out loud. Gil, we haven't heard from you in a little while. Would you mind reading these bullets?
Yeah, let me just see. Am I muted? No, I'm not muted.
No.
So the practice for the bullets are build or break down a boundary in your life, speak less when among people junior to you, speak more if you tend to be quiet, not my problem, change where you sit or how you dress, engage in self-care, park considerately, and sing. And not a bullet, but try journaling.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I'm going to stop the share. And so I'd love everybody to think for a little bit, like, what is it what action do you want to take in the coming week? Maybe it's related again to chesed, maybe it's related to something else. Sing is on there because Reb Nachman said that singing is one of the best ways to connect to the divine. And sometimes people are really shy about singing, especially Americans, like in public. And so it could be an act of just kind of becoming less self-conscious. So maybe it's singing and allowing that joy to come out, whether it's singing in the shower, or other people, or you're at a party and I think I told the story where I was at a party in graduate school and somebody said, let's sing, and they were British, and everybody looked and was like, no, we don't do that here. So okay, fine. But maybe in the chat, or you could just unmute and think about what is one small step you want to take this week to kind of bring your humility towards balance, and maybe kind of bring your chesed towards balance with how you want to
Right.
humility.
I
Yeah.
have a little story. last night or the other night, I was taking care of my grandkids and I was putting them in bed, and I don't usually sing because I don't like the way my voice sounds, or I don't know the words. And my grandson wanted Baby Beluga, and I always go to my phone and find the song and play it, Rafi. And he said, "Why don't you sing?" I go, "Well, I don't know the words." "Welcome," says me. So I looked him up because I knew the tune, and I sang it for him, and he was thrilled. He was just thrilled that I didn't just play it off of YouTube. So
No,
I'm going to look up lyrics more often.
yeah, there we go. That is occupying a little more space by singing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It sounds like your grandchild loved it.
yeah, he did.
Other stories or anyone else want to sort of think about a way that they will practice humility in the coming week?
I'm going to set better boundaries for myself.
Hmm. All right. Let's all send a little strength to Marianne to help her set better boundaries. Anyone else?
Yeah, I put it in the chat.
Ah. Okay. Thank you. Well, let's all send some strength to Gil as he works on practicing the Star Spangled Banner. Sue, did I see your hand?
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing that Nancy put in here in the chat, which was self-care.
All right, well, let's all send some strength to Nancy and to Sue to encourage them to practice self-care. Okay, well, now it is time for us to bring our sacred space to a close. So once again, as we always do, please close your eyes and relax in your seat. And take in a deep breath through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And imagine a glow around yourself. It's like a little ball. Sort of a semi-permeable boundary. It lets some things through, keeps other things out. We don't want it to be too firm because then we're keeping out too much. But we don't want it to be too porous or it lets in too much. May we all have the wisdom and the courage and the knowledge so that we take up the right amount of space. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes.